What is good, YouTube? Quinway basketball analysis. Coming to y'all with a quick video. We're going to talk about the hottest and probably the only trade right now, and probably will be for the rest of the day, which is one we didn't really see coming, but actually do make sense. Um, the Utah Jazz will move on for Joe Ingles, who is out for the season, but he will be a free agent, so they don't have to pay him for the rest of the year, and they actually get a player that they can play, and Nickeil Alexander Walker, who they did get in this trade. But the Jazz acquired Nickeil Alexander Walker, Juancho Hernan Gomez in the three-team trade that will send the Spurs will get Tomas Satoransky in a 2027 second round pick. The Portland Trailblazers will receive Joe Ingles, who is more salary cap filler to get off the Nickeil contract. And he will be a free agent, so this will just become contract room for next season as they try to decide what they're going to do. So this is an aspiring contract, which comes off the books this year once the season is over. To get Elijah Hughes, who we do have to see what he's going to be and what he's going to do. Do they want to use him? He's on a rookie contract, so do they want to keep him? Do they want to use him? Will he be a part of this team? Is this just a flyer pick? Do they want to waive him? They ultimately decide what they want to do with him now that he's on their roster, and they got to figure that part out. But they can figure that out later, as this team has a lot of young talent already at this point, and a lot of guys that got to prove themselves. And they get a second round pick in 2022, which is this draft via the Memphis Grizzlies. And like I said before, the Jazz will get Nickeil and Juancho in this trade. And it also will save the Jazz $11 million in luxury tax. So honestly, I don't really think this trade is amazing or terrible, but I do think it makes sense for the Jazz the most. One, because they get off of Joe Ingles' contract. This is a team that is trying to win now. They are trying to stay competitive, and Joe Ingles is out literally for the rest of the season, which means you'll be playing a guy that won't be able to do anything for you this season because he's out. And now you have to bring in a guy like Nickeil and Juancho who actually can play. They're not good players or great players at this point of their careers and may not be on this roster long term, most likely, especially because this is a team that's still on that championship pedigree the last couple seasons, whether if they win it or not, that's their goal. And I don't think this trade really helps much with that, but it does give you two players that you can possibly move or trade in the future because they still under contract, and it also give you a chance to have people that can actually play outside of Joe Ingles. Now, is Joe Ingles better than both of these players? Yeah, when healthy, because he can actually shoot, handle the ball, and play well with a team that he's been on, compared to two guys that's not great shooters or great scorers at this point of their careers. But Joe Ingles won't be able to play for this year, so it makes a little bit more sense to get guys that can actually contribute, fill some depth spots on his team, and give them a little versatility if they decide to keep them long term, which I doubt will happen at this point of their careers. But getting a guy that won't play off your roster for guys that can play is better, than having them on there, especially when you do still save $11 million in luxury tax also doing this deal. So not only did you get rid of a guy that couldn't play, you brought in two guys that can play, even though I don't think they're better than Joe Ingles combined, especially for this Utah team. But you save money and you get rid of a guy that's not going to contribute or help you that much. This deal does make more sense for Utah at this point, but it's done. And like I said, Portland, they really didn't get nothing crazy out of this, but the fact that they get Joe Ingles' contract off this year, once his free agency, he will be a free agent, so they can use that money on somebody else or be able to, take some gambles on some players with that contract. And like I said, they did get a second round pick, and they also got Elijah Hughes. And like I said, you rather get a 2020 second round pick than a 2027 second round pick because obviously it's a draft that you can see when you're a team like Portland, you actually probably know what you want around that range already when you make this trade, and then you can pretty much pick up a guy or use some assets they got in these other trades or in this trade like Elijah to try to get somebody else you want in the draft or move up a couple spots. If you Portland, which we're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with this roster, and they already did get a big pick in the Pelicans trade for CJ and another pick. And the Spurs, I don't think this matters as much for them because they did get Satoransky um, in a 2027 second round pick, but the pick is still far away because it's only 2022 and it's a second round pick too, which isn't that bad for the Spurs who have done good in the second round, but it don't really matter much now because it's so far from now and we don't really know what it's going to be. But, we can't really worry about that at this point, but it is a pick. And we had to mention that. And Satoransky, I don't really see him staying here long term either. He is a solid, decent player in the league, not really a huge difference maker, not really a big, time player at this point. Probably 3 years ago, it would have made, a big deal, especially because the Spurs, are a team that are on the cups of being a play-in conversation team. I don't really think this trade helps them a lot or made them significantly worse. But I also don't think that it mattered that much because we thought this would be a rebuilding season already for the Spurs, which it has been at this point. But, they still do have to figure out other guys' roles and what they're going to be, especially after making some trades these last 2 days and also getting a second round pick for that. So we'll see what Satoransky's career is. It's not going to be long with the Spurs. Not going to be crazy for the Spurs. But, he is older. He is going to eventually probably get bought out or moved again before the season is over next year. So he can go on a contender, be a ninth or 10th man on one of those rosters and be a good backup or a third string guard for those teams. Or he could ride out with the Spurs and give them some veteran presence, give them a little bit of depth and help guys out if somebody gets injured for a week or two or a month. He can be a solid guy that can come in and just contribute, play his role, play his game, and give them 15, 25 minutes at the max. So I don't really see him being on the team long term. I don't really see him being a big part of this team even this year because they are terrible. He ain't gonna really change much of that. But getting him in another pick isn't that terrible for a team like the Spurs, especially since they gave a Juancho who is a solid player, but so is Satoransky, so they didn't really downgrade. Plus, like I said, I don't really see either one of those players on this team long term anyway, so it makes sense to get a pick out of it, while also getting a solid player that could be movable, waivable, and not a part of your future anyway at this point. So it makes a little bit of sense for the Spurs to get the pick, especially if we can get it for a guy like Juancho at this point. So, we'll see what happens with the Blazers. They've been the most busiest team so far right now in the trade deadline, which makes sense because they're one of the teams that's blowing it up along with Indy and teams like Sacramento. But Portland, I don't think they're done. I think tomorrow we obviously see another trade that's going to happen, probably Dame to Philly, which we all know is going to happen. We're just waiting for it to actually be done. So we'll see what happens at this point. Other than that, Quinn Wade Basketball signing out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And, most likely at this point of the day, I'll see y'all tomorrow. But I had to cover it for you.